Welcome back, our noble viewers. Before we get into the video, a trans woman is a man who identifies as a woman, sometimes taking hormones or undergoing surgery to transition their body to women's, but still started life with male muscles, bones, and testosterone. In other words, they were assigned male at birth but now identify and live as a woman, though their biological traits often remain male. If you still don't get this, imagine someone born with a boy's body but who feels deep down that they're a woman. That person is called a trans woman. Many people think trans people are a new thing, that they just popped up in the last decade or two. It feels like trans women are now everywhere, right? Well, that's not because they suddenly appeared. They've always been around. They've existed for centuries in different cultures and under different names. From ancient shamans to 20th century performers, trans women have always existed, just hidden in the background. They've been part of human history forever. What's new is TikTok, Instagram, and X. Now the whole world can see and hear them. Social media dragged them from the shadows into the spotlight. Social media finally gave them a mic, letting trans voices speak for themselves, you know? So, yeah, before we can dive in, get that one thing straight, that trans women have existed across cultures and eras. The only reason they got into your YouTube feed today is because social media made them impossible to ignore, a platform the world couldn't ignore. But while visibility has increased, so has controversy, especially in sports and women's sports in particular. Like she's identifying as a woman, but running more like a man. What's going on? By the end of this video, you'll know exactly why trans women dominate in female sports, just like men dominate chess. That's for another video, by the way. Subscribe and ring the bell to get notified later. Anyway, I was saying that while social media helped trans women share their stories, it also amplified the backlash, especially in sports, in arenas built on fairness and physical performance. Take an example of the 2019 incident, when a trans woman crossed the finish line first in a women's race. That changed the entire conversation around fairness in sports. In 2019, trans athlete CeCé Telfer won the NCAA Division II women's 400 meters hurdles in 57.53 seconds, well ahead of the second place time. That literally sparked a global debate that hasn't stopped since. Which side of the debate are we proposing? Well, keep watching to find out. In collegiate swimming, Lia Thomas won an NCAA Division I 500-yard freestyle title in 2022, becoming the first openly transgender NCAA D1 champion. In elite international sport, New Zealander Laurel Hubbard became the first trans woman to compete at the Olympics, women's 87 kilograms weightlifting in Tokyo 2020. See guys, in just under 4 months ago, in February 2025, the NCAA, which is the organization that sets the rules and standards for college sports and also regulates and oversees college athletics in the US, passed a rule that now limits women's teams to athletes assigned female at birth only. This was done following a federal order. I vividly remember that night I was watching television, remote in one hand, leftover pizza in the other. I was settling in for a quiet night. Then it hit. A headline that flashed like a NCAA bans trans women from women's sports in reversal of a 15-year policy. I remember the TV glass fading to black in my mind. See, when someone transitions from one sex to another, they undergo what they call gender-affirming hormone therapy. When transitioning to a female, they have to suppress the hormone, testosterone, which for people assigned male at birth like him, typically runs 10 to 15 times higher. So from 2010, the NCAA's policy allowed trans women to compete in women's sports after 1 year of testosterone suppression. But boy, it turns out that even after 2 years of estrogen therapy, the trans women were still 12% faster than cis women in running. Oh, a new word for some of you. Cis women, short for cisgender women, are women assigned female at birth and still identify as female. Think of them like the quote-unquote default setting on the gender menu. The women you grew up cocking just before you knew gender had a drop-down menu. See, one US military study found that before hormone therapy, trans women could do 31% more push-ups, 15% more sit-ups, and ran 1.5 miles. This is 21% faster than cis women. After 2 years of estrogen therapy and testosterone suppression, push-up and sit-up performance became statistically equal to cis women's, but running speed remained about 12% faster in the trans women. Does this leverage what the critics always argue? That men will be men? Keep watching to find out. Well, we know for sure that trans women always retain significantly greater lean body mass than cis women. We are talking 30.7 kilograms versus 21.9 kilograms here. We also know that biological males, or cis men, typically develop larger muscle mass, bone density, heart or lung size, and higher hemoglobin during puberty. These attributes contribute to the well-known sex differences in sports, that is, 11 to 15 times higher testosterone on average. The elephant in the room is how much of these advantages persist after a trans woman undergoes GAHT. Researchers from Afghanistan asserted that trans women lost some muscle mass and strength and gained body fat after clinically lowering their testosterone. In another instance, a Russian study found that after 1 to 2 years of estrogen therapy, trans women's push-up and sit-up performance dropped to cis female levels, though endurance to something like 1.5-mile runs remained above biological females. In another study conducted in Uganda, they found that trans women's grip strength was comparable to cis men and much higher than cis women. Just to be on the safe side, by grip strength we mean the force or power your hand can produce when holding something tightly or firmly, not your vagina. So in general, I think these should explain why the World Rugby banned trans women outright. They said they retain 25 to 50% more strength, were 30% more powerful, 40% heavier, and about 15% faster, posing increased injury risks at the rugby pitch. Speaking of World Rugby becoming the first major sports federation to ban trans women from women's rugby, personally I think excluding them was a misguided step, even if well-intentioned. I see the logic in parts of the decision, but it lacks humanity and the compassion for those it most affects. Think about how many young people are likely to harm themselves after this legislation's passing. Rugby as a sport has mental health benefits, and trans youth face high depression and suicide risk, neglect, name it. But taking away the one sport that would greatly improve their well-being after participation is kind of like a narrow solution to a broader issue. That said, let me also bring to your attention that when this video's title might use dominate, we are not saying trans women dominate female sports in terms of numbers, because statistically they make up a fraction of a percent of all female athletes. In one report conducted near the Bermuda Triangle, trans athletes were fewer than 10 in a scope of 530,000 competitors. This means trans women make up less than 0.0002% of athletes, at least as of now. Yet somehow, they're the main character in nearly every debate about women's competition. A global firestorm to the very least. Because in my opinion, when Lia won a swimming title, or when Laurel stepped onto the Olympic weightlifting stage, it wasn't just about who touched the wall first or who lifted the most kilos. It was about something bigger. Who gets to belong? The irony of all this is that biology matters in sports. Yeah, it does. It's no secret that men and women go through different things, like when she's convinced the world is ending because he forgot to take out the trash again, and he's convinced the world's ending because she watched 3 Netflix episodes in one sitting and didn't reply to his text for a little over 5 minutes. Now imagine applying that same emotional difference to a 100-meter sprint, or a wrestling match, because then you will realize that the thing called biology isn't just a detail, it's the scoreboard. When you watch all these different kinds of sports, you realize one thing. Men seem to have started with a biological head start. We're talking who recovers faster, who lifts heavier, who sprints harder, who skips leg day, and so on. Because sincerely speaking, this is what decides medals. Let me tell you some of the things male puberty does to a human body. It builds muscle, increases bone density, expands lung capacity. Basically a performance cheat code from Mother Nature. No disrespect, just facts. Now when a trans woman transitions, you really think those quote-unquote game changers get erased? Nah, I mean, over time as she continues more and more of the hormone therapy and stuff it does. But researchers guarantee there's some kind of traces or imprints left behind of the male archetype. Think the voice, for example. My name is Miguel was a classic. So yeah, some advantages from male puberty don't totally disappear. Things like height, limb length, and bone structure often stick around. This is one reason why. Because some trans women retain an edge, especially in endurance or strength-based events. Debate in modern sports. There's like no perfect box to put this in, if you know what I mean. There seems like no way she can compete with a man whose hierarchies never died. Like you can't just put her head on head with a Sigma male. She's on constant hormone therapy that are reducing muscle size, facial hair growth, and spontaneous arousal. And him? His manhood traits are going multifold. And like I said, there's no robust third trans league yet because the population is small. In fact, I took this to one of the best AI language models around. Know what he said? Let's just avoid making a clear rule and let the confusion persist. I probed it a bit more to identify where the real problem is rooting. It said,
"We built sports as binary, but biology and identity is not binary."
That we built a rulebook for a world that no longer fits neatly into checkboxes. Reflect on that for a moment, and tell me your take in the comments section.
Against a male body.
And you know what makes this more like a global firestorm for our XX chromosome mothers, the cis women I'm saying of, to them? Title this, and this was more than a battle. So when it feels like something's shifting, it can feel like something's being taken. Like a fragile space is being disrupted. Shifting anything on her hard-earned title can feel like a loss. And for trans women, being told you can't compete feels like being told you don't belong, because participation is tied to purpose, and inclusion to dignity. So in essence, both sides feel like they're defending something sacred. So do trans women dominate female sports? Not in numbers, but physically. When the cis woman is at "on your marks," the trans lady is sprinting at 50 meters because you can delete the software, but the coded firmware still be running in the background like a soul that never got closure. And friends, the way we should move this forward, I think, is to always, like always, remember, before those headlines, those conversations, hostility, before any of that, remember that behind every stat is a soul. And that's it, guys, for today's episode. Thanks for being brave enough to ask this one with me. If this gave you something to think about, maybe pass it along. Subscribe for more deep dives like these, about humans, not hashtags. Until next time, be kind, stay curious, and shine amongst the brimful lore. Thanks for watching.
Dripping light.